Namaste, friends. Today I'm going to interview Rajiv Malhotra on his latest book, Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Power. This is what the book looks like. It's a real heavyweight book. And Rajiv, I must confess, as much as I have read of your book, as with all your earlier books, this latest one is another bombshell. It isn't just a book, and it is going to shake people out of complacence. Anybody who reads it seriously will actually have a lot to think about, a lot to worry about, a lot to angst about. Now, I would like you to start with telling our viewers what is your definition of artificial intelligence?
So artificial intelligence is not one technology, but actually it's a whole cluster of technologies. It includes nanotechnology, natural language processing, wearables. It includes drones. It includes semiconductors. It includes quantum computing. All these are separate technologies that have gone ahead in their own way. But artificial intelligence, or the mind, just like the brain puts all the body together, it's the mind that brings all these things together. It empowers them. It's a force multiplier, and its function, that's the technological view, but its function is to augment the mind, amplify the mind, substitute for the mind, supersede the mind, mimic the mind, but it's all about mind. So just like a technology which does something for your muscles, it carries more weight or travels faster like a car. It is an amplifier of your muscular body. And just like we have technologies that amplify your vision, telescopes, microscopes, electron microscopes, and they just amplify your vision. So this thing amplifies your mind. So whatever is mental work, instead of 50 people, instead of 50 pilots on an airplane, keeping track of so many enemies and missiles, one pilot in a Rafael jet with artificial intelligence can track all of them, can calculate which missile is going where, what are the strategies, what to do. So it amplifies the capability of one pilot as though it were 50. So it also allows people to do things a lot faster. For instance, facial recognition. If there is a few images, few pictures of Madhu, and they want to find out where is Madhu in this stadium with 50,000 people, a drone can go and with facial recognition, look at everybody's face and quickly pick out and say, this one is Madhu. So it can pick up if whether you are wearing glasses that day, not wearing glasses that day, whatever your facial expression may be, it can still say that's Madhu. So this ability to do things which normally we feel require intelligence is artificial intelligence. So basically, artificial intelligence builds on a map or a model of how intelligence works. And if the model is successful, then you can replicate it more easily, better. If the model is not successful, you got to keep building on it. So this AI concept has been around for several decades, but recently it became hugely successful because of massive computing power, a large amount of data called big data, which is now available to understand how things work and reverse engineer. So this has now become the cutting edge field in computer science. Now, I want to also explain to you a lot in many ways. What I just described as artificial intelligence is normally computers also. Computers are always doing this. So you can say what's new. There's something dramatically new in AI from previous computer science. Because in previous computer science, the programmer needed to know how a certain thing functions, and then he could put it into the computer. You can only program what you understand. But AI, here is the important point. In AI, you don't need to know how an intelligent system works. There is something called machine learning, which figures out how it works. So for instance, you are cooking a certain recipe, and what the old way is you write it down, here is how you cook, and that's the computer programming approach. And your recipe is called an algorithm in computer terminology. So you can write down the algorithm how to make, whatever, aloo paratha. So that is your recipe. But let's say you don't want to tell me and you don't want to write down how you make this aloo paratha so delicious. But we have ways of looking at how you're making it. So from the data of how you are making it, we decipher and reverse engineer what your recipe must be. So we learn the recipe by just watching you.
So is it primarily an instrument of surveillance, very intrusive instrument of surveillance? And how is it going to impact Indian society?
Surveillance is one of the uses of artificial intelligence, because when you do surveillance with a lot of sensors, you have what is called big data. You're gathering big data, and then from that you can understand people's behavior. You can model their behavior like a psychologist. The more the psychologist knows about you, the more they can understand your behavior, the more they can even predict what your behavior will be like under different circumstances. So this is watching your behavior, watching what messages you send, what kind of pictures you post, where you are traveling, who your friends are, what you are buying, where you click, where you don't click. So every single click on the social media enhances the machine learning knowledge about you. So you are leaving footprints and signatures every single time. So if somebody is listening to this, they will know at what points in time she nods, when she approves something, when she doesn't approve, what happens to the tone and inflection of her voice. So the AI system is able to be very minutely do surveillance, capturing information about you. But it has also got great uses, because the same intelligence can treat diseases. The same intelligence can be used for better mental health, better education, better agriculture. It can understand the nature of disease of plants and figure out how to solve those things. So the understanding nature's intelligence and allows it to intervene and supersede nature's intelligence, or augment it, or anticipate it, like understanding the weather, or understanding climate, and understanding soil, so you can predict what kind of a crop will come. That is one aspect of AI. But understanding human intelligence, not just nature's intelligence, but man-made. So man has made some kind of a missile, or man has made some kind of a device, something, and being able to decode, figure it out, that also it does. So it has a wide range of applications. It is the future, it is the present and future of computer science. And it will define haves and have-nots.
How is it going to impact society at a wider level, apart from pushing things you don't want, or as seducing you into buying things which you otherwise may not need?
So, there is this, in my book, I mentioned that as machines get smarter, people get dumber. So one of the things that AI is doing is encouraging you to take the default action, and leaving the thinking and decision making to the machine. So you become more dependent on Google Devata. You ask Google and he'll tell you what's right, because you don't need to have knowledge now. A lot of kids tell me that whatever I need to know, I'll ask Siri, I'll ask Google, I'll ask Wikipedia, and they'll tell me, why should I have knowledge? So now I've coined these terms: Google Devta, Twitter Devta, Facebook Devta. These are the Devatas. So we have surrendered our agency. We have surrendered our intelligence, become dumbed down. So now the more you dumb down, the more this algorithm becomes smart in thinking about you, figuring you out. It says, when I sent this kind of post, he responded. When I sent that kind of post, he didn't respond. When I send a certain kind of image, certain kind of a picture, he's more likely to respond. Not only in terms of what products he wants, what vacations he wants, but what fantasies he has. What kind of what is in his unconscious that he's not even telling people, but we know because he responds a certain way. So what ideology will he like? What is his ideology? Is he this left wing, right wing, middle wing, whatever? What faith? What is his views on faith? What is his views on other people, other Indians? How to make him angry at people? How to make him fight? So if there is a CAA, anti-CAA riot, or an anti-370 riot, or anti-anything kind of riot, these machine learning systems know a lot about different kind of population groups, what their propensity is, is likely to be able to get into a fight with somebody else, with what ammunition, whether it is fake news or real news. If it is fake news, they manufacture it. If it is real news, they can also emphasize something obscure, make it look more important. So the ability to mold behavior, to buy shoes, that same psychology, that same artificial intelligence is also used to figure out how to make you convert to a certain faith, how to make you angry, how to make you revolt, how to get into a riot. So, this is So the future of psychological warfare, the future of manipulating human beings, the future of digitally colonizing people, mentally colonizing people, making them emotionally depend on you, is all because of AI. So AI is the weapon. It's a mental, because it is about the mind. It can also be used as a weapon against the mind. So a large number of Indians are into this AI, into the social media, you, me, and we have given up what is called big data, which means the systems know more about Madhu Kishwar than any relative or friend knows about you. And probably in certain ways, it knows more about you than you know about yourself, because it doesn't forget. And you cannot, you may not remember certain things. You may not want to remember certain things. You may have done certain things kind of subconsciously, not thinking twice about it. But there is something called unconscious bias. We all have unconscious bias. So I'm not conscious of it, but I have some biases. The machine picks it up. So as the more data you have given it, which is called big data, the smarter it is. So the machines are becoming smarter. People are becoming more dependent on these machines. Machine is able to figure out the behavior of people. And those people who own these machines, the Zuckerbergs of the world and so on, have a huge amount of power over you. So I've called this the return of the East India Company in my book. I've called it the return of the East India Company. And I've called that these are the new devatas that we're all buying to, because they will give me preference. They will give me more retweets. If I misbehave, they will shadow ban me. Somebody's post gets more views than somebody else's posts. Even the same post I've seen, we've done an experiment where 5 different people put up the same post. I put it up and a bunch of other people, but they have different profile. They have a different profile. Their background is different. Their name is different. So they all get treated differently by the YouTube. They all get treated differently by Twitter. So this is highly personalized knowledge about your psychology, a personalized kind of understanding of how your mind works. And this is to hack your agency. This is to use all this to get the better of you, to make you behave the way they want to. So the power of the power of AI over the mind can be, you can figure out millions of applications for it, good and bad.
In your book, you mentioned, Rajiv, in your book, you mentioned that China has leapfrogged into this
Yes.
technology.
Yes.
And it's far ahead of European countries. Is it because they are very good at mind manipulation anyway? Communist regimes everywhere in the world has thrived on the basis or survived on the basis of mind management and total control, totalitarian control of the mind. So is this why China has invested so heavily into artificial intelligence and is way ahead of first world countries?
See, we can't trivialize China's contributions in AI. This is one aspect. But China is using AI for making robots that will be very good soldiers. So with all these cameras, it can negotiate potholes. It can negotiate, climb a wall, climb a mountain. It'll become more and more skilled compared to human soldiers, and be able to survive in very adverse conditions, very cold climate, not need food, not fall ill, be disposable. So if the thing is broken, you finish it off. So imagine a robotic army, which is the mechanical part is easy to do. So now it's the AI part to make it smarter and smarter. So imagine a drone air force, where CIA is developing a air force of 1 lakh drones, 1 lakh planes. So they'll fly here, there, and so you can dispose of them. Imagine a small drone this big with a camera that has been programmed to look for a particular person and shoot him. Imagine, what will you do against that? What will you do when Pakistan gets huge amount of such material from China, which they are getting in the process of getting, and China uses Pakistan as sort of boots on the ground, but that gives them all this intelligence, all this stuff to invade India. Now you'll have drones. You'll have coming in the middle of the night. They have night vision, which human beings don't have. They don't fall ill. They don't need to sleep. I mean, an army of drones and robots and intelligent weapons of all kinds, intelligent missiles, is the future of warfare. And so China is invested heavily in not only surveillance of its people and social control, which is called gamification. The term gamification means that you monitor individuals and you monitor societies and you evaluate them, every action based on whether it's good or bad according to your value system, and you gamify them, which means you give them more rewards if they get good points, good behavior, and you deduct points and punish them in various ways. So in China, they're gamifying the country, all the people, where if you behave in a certain way, your views are correct and you are complying, you didn't have a traffic violation, you're standing in line properly, I mean, all these kind of things, then it may be easier for you to get theater tickets, it may be easier for you to get a discount on a plane, so you get some rewards. So this business of rewarding and punishing based on your behavior is called gamification.
But is the Indian defense establishment aware of it, aware of this challenge? Are they doing anything to meet up to it?
So I have been talking a lot to the defense people, and the answer is yes, but it's too little and too late. There are some fundamental technologies that India doesn't have. China has a 10-year lead or some huge lead on quantum computing, in semiconductors, in avionics, and so on. China is the largest producer of robotics and drones in the world. So, they placed some good bets. They placed some good bets long ago. And we are into jugaad, short term. And right now we have a lot of talk, not as much action. The AI policy is coming just now. It's being discussed and debated. And I must say I'm very disappointed with Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog should have done this long ago. But even now, they are relying a lot on secondary sources. I mean, they've got, they're often the AI strategies quoting the McKinsey or some foreign, consulting company on AI's impact and all that. Actually, Indian society is very different. A bottom-up study of Indian society needs to be done in order to figure out what would be the best optimum way of using AI in India. And so I think, in a sense, the answer is yes. The Indian military is aware of it. And Indian military is very keen to do the best we can to catch up. But on the other hand, catching up will not be easy. Catching up will not be easy because the resources needed are huge. India has lost this race. At least the first segment of the race, India has lost. And now the question is, can India catch up?
Rajiv, in this book, you talked about the Moronization of the masses.
Yes.
Now, coming on top of lumpenization of Indian youth through the formal education system. What we are producing, as you well know, even better than me, are unemployable young people. The British at least produced intelligent clerks.
Right.
We're not even producing competent peons. That's the level to which Indian education, school education, college education has sunk. On top of which, you're saying there's artificial intelligence, which is going to further moronize masses. Could you please elaborate on this? And is the government of India not filled with such moronized
Yes.
bureaucrats, cops, judicial officers?
This is very important. People don't want to hear this. People want to hear good news. Okay, hum cricket ka match jeet ke, hum 5,000 years ago, we were a great civilization. And so they want to feel good. And they don't want to be realistic and then do something about it because they don't want to face responsibility. So my book is telling them that, listen, this addiction to social media, dependence on what will retweet more, what will please Twitter more, or any of these social media, make us more dependent on it. The reliance on such measures of social media as your prestige, the barometer of prestige, matrimonial value, job value, political value, your value as an icon, as a celebrity, all determined, all in the hands of these foreign people. It's like in the East India Company days. Let's say the Raja was more interested in being in the good books of the East India Company because that would affect everything. And if they wanted, they could bring this guy down, this Raja down, and bring that Raja up and play one against the other if they wanted to, because they controlled. So now these digital giants armed with AI are controlling the destinies of 1.3 billion Indians because we don't have our own platforms the way China has its own platforms. India sold out to these people. And I have a lot to say I'm very upset at the way India has sold out to these people. The government
Please
has.
say it loud and clear, because many of us are deeply distressed at this sellout. Please, coming from you, it will have an impact.
The book was ready a couple of years ago. I've been working on it for 5 years. Nobody would hear me. I would go around talking to a lot of ministers in Delhi. A lot, they would send me here. They would treat me nicely, politely, but they wouldn't do a darn thing. Then the bureaucrats the same way. I gave talks privately. I wanted to make an impact privately first, and nothing was. They were not doing anything. So I I I'm quite upset at the many policies of India. The most recent one was about 6-8 months ago. India invited Google and Facebook to invest a huge amount of money in Reliance Geo. I actually went to a dear friend of mine whom we both know, who's a well-known economist, very big public figure. Uh, and I said to him, I'm very concerned about it. I need to write an article. It's in my book, but I'll write a 10-page article, and can you get it published so that maybe they can have an inquiry on whether Geo should go ahead and make this thing or not. It's against the national interest. It's a national security threat because they'll have access to all the data. WhatsApp will know, and Google people will know even more about Indians than they already know, because Geo is opening the floodgates, opening the door to them. Geo is bringing them into this country.
And they're killing rival companies like Airtel.
So what is happening is, because of Geo's power, and Geo makes money out of it as the zamindars. Geo's zamindar. Google has come and invested in them, given them the money, given them the technology, build them up. So Indians are looking up to this zamindar. Wow, this zamindar Reliance. But actually, they have opened the gates for foreign surveillance, for foreign big data capturing of Indians, for foreign control over us. We're becoming slaves of these things. Rather than Geo saying we'll have an Indian platform, we'll have an Indian search engine, we'll have an Indian social media, which the way China did. It has the deep pockets, one of the few companies that could do it. Geo, Tata's few people. Rather than doing that, they sold out the Indian population to the American giants and said, you come and take over, but just give us enough money for it. So I talked to this friend of mine, this person whom I look up to. He's a good person, and he was so confused.
Why don't you name it?
Subramanian Swamy. Dr. Subramanian Swamy, whom I respect a lot, he said, look, I'll get your article published in a couple of days. I guarantee. So I sent it to him, and I heard nothing. And then I called him, and he says, but I can't understand. What are you saying? How is it possible that with this data sitting far away, they will compromise us? I am not sure I understand all this artificial intelligence, how it could do this. I said, Dr. Swamy, artificial intelligence is like the Industrial Revolution. It's having that big an impact on society. And imagine an economist 200 years ago during that revolution said, I don't know anything about Industrial Revolution. What kind of economist would it be? I mean, we had a nice, friendly chat. And then I said, you're concerned about how does it hack the mind? Well, people in the US are accusing Putin for hacking the US elections. How did that happen? I mean, there's so much of this hacking going on. There's Cambridge Analytica, a company that did hacking in India also. So this business of hacking is real, and you have to understand it. So he, in fact, put out a press release supporting, when I had sent him privately my case, 10-page long case, why India should not allow this investment. At least there should be a hearing. There should be some safeguards. I would like to present a contrarian view. People should listen to it. We should not rush into it. He put out a press release. My article didn't get published. He didn't publish it. He put out a press release supporting the investment. So, in fact, he took the opposite view. He supported the investment, giving the Reliance party line that this is good for Reliance. It'll relieve their debt. They'll get money into the country. Come on. I mean, that's like East India Company buying out the Raja, putting him on an elephant and giving him 21-gun salute, and all the people running around saying we are very honored and very proud because look at how much money they've given us to buy us out. So what I'm trying to tell you is I have a lot of respect for Dr. Swamy. I'm going to have this discussion with him soon to understand whether he's rethinking this policy. But this is common among people in management, people in economics, government economic advisors, completely clueless. Economists in Niti Aayog I have been talking to, not well educated in AI. Spiritual gurus not educated on AI. So we are kind of uh, highly vulnerable. The importance of breakthrough technologies, you can understand. Babur brought cannons in the Battle of Plassey, and that India didn't have cannons. And the Portuguese and other Europeans brought on boats and ships. They brought cannons, and they had better instruments, navigation, and this and that. And so it is the technological superiority which allowed them to conquer and rule. British had so many technological advantages, including the Industrial Revolution, and they denied India setting up its own industries. So AI is this kind of a weapon now. AI will define not only haves and have-nots among individuals, but also among nations. And the recolonization of India is a realistic possibility.
How does it fit with Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's slogan of Atmanirbhar Bharat? Because he's constantly evoking this image and trying to inspire entrepreneurs to set up startups. But if startups means, setting a little pottery unit or a Zomato type of supply chain, I mean, then we're not going very far with it because the world has moved on.
So, what will happen is, my scenario of India is not very positive. I have 5 battlegrounds. Battleground 5 is stress testing India's sovereignty.
But you will also link it to your thesis in this book that the AI is going to be breaking India 2.0. How does it link with the earlier breaking India forces?
So, just like in the previous book, I went into many organizations, the foreign nexuses. Some of it I was able to go in myself. Some of it I hired people and let them go in because they wouldn't let me in. So this kind of ability to go in, spend a few years understanding what they're up to, what are they funding in India, what is their game plan. I was able to do that. And hence my book was providing evidence-based theory ahead of its time. And then for the last 10 years, everybody is sort of copying that idea and giving new examples, but the basic framework was there. Same way this AI book, in the last few years, I've gone into organizations which are very deeply involved in using this artificial intelligence to undermine India socially. India socially, politically. So the Breaking India forces will become BI 2.0, Breaking India 2.0, because they'll be able to use all these technologies to make Gadar in India, to create chaos in India, to create political upheaval, to create violence, to create riots. Now, when there was anti-CAA and 370 riots in Delhi, a lot of people started talking about, George Soros is doing it. Okay. But these are superficial view. What I know about what these guys are doing using artificial intelligence, some of the things I've not even put in the book because I'm writing a sequel to it. And I also want people to understand what I've written already in this book, and then I'll go further. But just to tell you a little bit, there are certain nexuses like that. There is a whole thing called artificial intelligence and Christianity, and they're talking about the future of evangelism, the future of missionaries. There is AI. The global left is adopted AI for what they call social justice. This whole idea of social justice is being put into these algorithms. So your algorithm will be tagged, ranked based on whether it promotes their idea of social justice. My post will be tagged, and if you are complying with them more, they'll morph you. They'll morph your thinking, modulate your thinking, the way you say things, what you should say, what you should not say, in order to become more popular in the social media. So this social media moronizing the people, brainwashing the people, taking over their agency as a way of furthering their idea of social justice. But this social justice is not some Vedic idea of social justice. It's not a dharmic idea of social justice. It's a global left idea of social justice. So the social justice movement has now been turbocharged with a force multiplier called AI. AI is a huge weapon. They have a big lead on this. Now what I won't disclose certain names, but I will tell you some well-known international, very wealthy guys, Soros being only one of them, I just mentioned his name, have invested in India. They have got ventures in India. One of them got more than 10 startups with very benign names. Some of them are tech startups. Some of them are human rights startups. Some of them are called AI ethics. So in fact,
Oh my.
So there are a lot of AI ethics and AI watchdogs in the United States that are actually funded by people like Google. They are funding organizations to be the watchdogs. Imagine that. So there is something called responsible AI, open AI for democracy, AI for minorities. But when you look in the details, a lot of the people who are behind the scenes supporting it are these Facebook, Google, Microsoft. These kind of people have supported because they want to be self-regulating. They want to know what the opponents will think. So a guy like me who is completely independent of them is bad news for them, because I'm seen as a whistleblower, because I know the technology. I don't care about getting anything out of them, and I'm going to talk about what they're up to. So this ability of controlling the discourse, even the discourse that opposes you make it sound like you're very sporting. There was a recent scandal when Google hired a woman, a minority woman, very brilliant, on the AI and bias, because there's a whole movement called that AI is biased because it's biased against blacks, it's biased against LGBTQ, because the kind of data and examples you use to learn to train the machine are biased examples. So if you look at crime and you look at facial recognition and whatnot, then a lot of blacks will show up as criminals. So when there's a black face, then it is correlated that this guy must be a criminal. So there is this bias in AI. And when they are screening people for jobs, they're screening resumes and so on, AI screening for jobs, they kind of are biased against certain groups. So there is a whole movement now, thanks to the blacks and and the men and the feminists and so on. They've started these movements are called AI and bias. And there's no, of course, Hindu voice. I'm the only guy who's talking there in these forums. Now, AI and bias became such a important thing that Facebook hired a head of AI and bias. Google hired, all these companies got to hire somebody to show that we are concerned about AI and bias. And this woman's job was in Google, her job was to look at Google's policies and Google's behavior and keep flagging if there was bias. It sounded like a very nice thing. But they fired her. They got rid of her because she wrote an article. She published an article pointing out that she thought this is her job. She pointing out that some of the practices that Google has are actually very biased, and so she got fired. So this is happening in the United States. There's a big battleground going on. India knows nothing about it. Indian people don't want to hear about it. They invite me to talk about some Hindu phobia and some old breaking India topics. When I say I want to talk about artificial intelligence, there's silence. People say, why you want to talk about artificial intelligence? That's something esoteric and maybe it's science fiction. We don't even know. Our people are so dumb and so ignorant. And I tell you, this is the whole literati, all these people, celebrities with their YouTube channels and Twitter handles, and they're doing their manthans and all these Jaipur Literary Festival and all kind of other literary festivals. They have no clue about this huge AI thing happening. And that's why India is in trouble.
Rajiv, you mentioned that you had to go undercover to gather details on the Breaking India 2.0 nexuses.
Right.
Why have you not gone public with these details? What are you afraid of?
So the people who let me down are my fellow Hindu activists. Many of the Hindu activists, they were basically interested in plagiarizing this knowledge without doing any hard work themselves, without acknowledging the source, setting me aside. Even you've mentioned once or twice when you went to Goa, they were doing a panel, and on stage you said, this is a panel all about Rajiv's work. Why isn't he here? The point is that I tried to get in. They said no. So there is a lack of genuine research and original thinking, and so mediocre people want to use somebody else's ideas to climb up to the top because they are better at PR. They have more contacts. They're sitting in Delhi all the time doing this politics. I am not there. So what will happen if I were to reveal all my knowledge in one shot is that they will quickly gobble all this, go running to the bosses of these various organizations and leave me aside. And so I have been betrayed by them, and I don't want to empower them.
No, are you saying that even the process of your gathering intelligence was risky?
Of course, it's
That
risky.
it could endanger you?
Firstly, I don't want to compromise my my informants. I mean, they use the term native informants. I have got informants too. So I got informants who are in the Soros organization. I've got informants in some of these other organizations. I've got somebody who's monitoring AI and Christianity, writing papers.
Could you explain that? How are Christian missions using AI for speeding up conversions?
So first of all, AI can be used to create what are called deep fakes. Deep fake is a video where it will look like Madhu Kishwar is making a certain speech, but actually I've drafted what Madhu Kishwar will be shown as saying. It will be your face, it will be your voice, it will have exactly your body language, but it'll be a fake. These are called deep fakes. So if you go to YouTube and you can look at deep fake of Obama, somebody made a deep fake of Obama talking nonsense, just to illustrate. Somebody made a deep fake of Zuckerberg. So you could make a deep fake of Modi. You could start a war. You could say deep Modi comes on the air and says, I push this button, I'm nukes bhej rahe hain Pakistan ko. And if it looks really authentic, wow, that could create havoc. So this deep fake, now you can create deep fakes against a local guru, against a local Hindu priest. The Christians can do mischief by putting out false information, by putting out fake news. All this AI enables on a very grand scale. And AI also enables targeting. So by knowing who are the people who go to this church, who are the people who go to this temple, what is the happening in their fight in the family, this person needs money. So the surveillance of down at the village level, in terms of using big data and figuring out the map of who are the prospects, where do you send your missionaries, what message should you send to this family versus that family. This people got a disease in the family, this people got a big fight in the family. So how your message should be modulated. Targeting, just like you can use AI to sell shoes, you can use AI to sell Christianity. So there is evangelism, missionary work. Now there's also a paper I saw where they said that robots will be used to do relief work. So when you have a tsunami or when you have an earthquake or whatever, to amplify the message of besides human beings, there'll be robots giving away relief work and food, and it'll create a lot of sensation, a lot of excitement. Villagers will get very thrilled that there is all this technology. But these robots also are going to be programmed to give out verses from the Bible. So they will be preaching also while handing things out. So the use of AI is both listening and surveillance, also messaging. Also, they can create posts. AI can create posts in English or any language which are so well written that you won't be able to tell that a machine wrote it.
See, already during the pandemic, the missionaries and the Islamists actually used government relief money and government goods that they were distributing. The government, in fact, sought their intervention, and the scale and the speed of conversions really skyrocketed.
I'll give you one data point I have, one big information I have, and that is using AI to target migrant workers who are displaced and their families who felt betrayed and left abandoned. So keeping track with AI, it's very interesting. Facebook knows more down at the village level where there's disruption, because there's something called sentiment analysis. By looking at your text, there is in natural language processing. By the way, all that is based on computational linguistics, which is based on Panini's grammar. That's a whole different story. Actually, we have given them all this, a lot of this, how to process meaning out of natural language. And I've been talking to my friends who gave this away for the last 10 years. A lot of them good friends, but they gave it away because they got good money for it. But that's a whole separate discussion. How Panini's language was the basis of computational linguistics, and how computational linguistics is the basis of natural language processing, and all of this happening with natural language processing is one of the pillars of artificial intelligence. So now what they can do is they can there is something called sentiment analysis, which allows them to measure the sentiment of a person, a community on a topic. Are the people responding positively, negatively? And AI can do it very quick, and you don't need a lot of human beings involved. So you can be surveilling and monitoring people's moods all the time. And so where computational linguistics comes in is in understanding the language in which you are writing, without needing a human being to actually understand the meaning of what you are writing, and being able to compose There have been competitions where people are asked to write a AI program that will write an essay on today's news, or you give some information, or to what is, write a 800-word essay on following topic, whatever the topic is. And then these AI written programs are given to human judges to see what they think. And some of the programs are so good that the judge cannot tell which one is a human writer and which one is an AI writer. The AI can write editorials that are indistinguishable from a human editor work, the work of a
Wow.
human editor. So this is power of producing messaging in videos, in posts, in all kind of languages you can translate it into. So obviously missionaries can use it, obviously Islamists can use it, Maoists can use it. Hindus are nowhere on the scene. Hindus don't even want to listen to me. हिंदूज फील कि ये जो बोल रहा है, ये पहले तो ठीक कर रहा था अपनी हिंदू फोबिया के बारे में, वेंडी डॉनिकर के बारे में, लाइक दिस, नाउ ही इज टॉकिंग अबाउट एआई. उसका क्या बात है अभी? समथिंग गॉन रॉन्ग विद राजीव. आई कीप टेलिंग देम that this book makes my previous books obsolete, because this is breaking India 2.0.
Even when people discuss the social, disruptive, or positive effects of AI, they usually have in mind industries, they usually have scientific domains in mind. But not many see it impacting the fundamental models and theories used in the social sciences.
Yes.
But you have written extensively in this book on how AI is disrupting the social sciences as disciplines.
Right.
Now, could you please, already we have the most messed up social science regime in India, where we've been fed all kinds of fake narratives, whether history, politics, sociology. And now you're saying AI is going to add further, or in a way, scale it up many times over. It's something we're not even prepared for.
So, social sciences there are many aspects to it. So each one AI is affecting. Data gathering. So, in the old days, you would send anthropologists, they would spend a long time, gather a lot of data about something in a village. Today, the behavior of people is being done through surveillance very quickly. So today, in this village, this happened, that village, that happened. There was a death in this village, so the messaging has turned into this way. That village, there's a new, craze, something new happening. This movie is doing well, that not doing. So whatever is the mood of people, whatever is the economy of people, whether they're spending more money, less money, monitored on a daily basis, on a village by village basis, on a community basis, on a jati basis, is what these guys are able to do. In fact, Google started giving seminars in Mumbai on different kind of small and medium-sized industries. What are the trends? And when you look at it, you wonder, my God, they have so much data that I asked a person from the Indian Statistical Institute, how do you gather data at the village level? And the data that is published by ISI, the Indian Statistical Institute, is 1 year old. So in 2021, they'll publish data based on surveys they did last year. So I said, but what about yesterday? What about last week? What about trends? How long does it take you? He said, we do sampling, we send a human team, they go up traveling and they gather this data. So it's the old-fashioned labor-intensive way of gathering data. And so this new machine learning with huge amount of big data available is able to gather this data very quickly. And your cell phones, what pictures you've uploaded are scanned, what messages you sent are scanned. So imagine this huge amount of big data educating and informing this kind of a surveillance brain somewhere. Okay, and our people don't have a clue. Our government doesn't have a clue. Indian industry hasn't produced any products of that kind.
But luckily, a lot of Indians are in this industry working at the behest of foreigners.
They are working for foreigners. They're not working. They're not doing make in India. They're doing make.
But if the government decided to say, come back,
they don't go at their own expense. China funds them, but they're required to come back. So it's a different policy. That's a whole strategy. So as far as social science is concerned, the data gathering of social sciences is obsolete, because now this new method of data gathering is much more data, more detailed, and very quick. Then the social sciences have to come up with patterns. What are the patterns of behavior? Is it for a caste? Is it based on gender? So, as having been in this field, the data has to be then processed statistically. And the machine learning systems are far more sophisticated in looking for patterns. And then these patterns can be turned into theories, predictive models. So now the predictive model based on AI is far better. This neural network based AI model predicting the behavior of a community, predicting the behavior of some class of people, far, far superior to the social sciences model. In fact, I went and looked for social scientists in India to bring them along while I was writing this book because I thought they would love it. I found very mediocre people. And these are people who are faculty members in Delhi University, people who were introduced to me as very brilliant and bright. I didn't find smart people. And they weren't, not only they hadn't thought of this and so on, which I can understand, but even when I gave them drafts to read, here is a chapter draft which talks about this the impact on social sciences. I have all that in my book. They couldn't even read it, understand it, give me any meaningful analysis or feedback. So I think that India's social scientists are very much behind the ones in the West because we've used Western models in India. And in America, in the United States, and in Europe, social scientists are beginning to get very interested in use of AI. So what will happen is this. Western social scientists in the past developed theories and exported to India. All the social sciences in India use Western theories. Now, AI-based new ways of doing social sciences will also be exported from the West to India because the Indian guys are buddhus. They're just not very smart. I mean, I don't know what else to say. So India is a generation behind.
Forget social science guys being Buddhos, Rajiv. What it tells me, I mean, the big warning is that even our existing intelligence agencies, who are supposed to gather intelligence by actually moving among people, having sources, even they do such a bad job. They've never been able to predict where trouble is brewing, whether it's Shaheen Bagh or the farmers' protest. You can see how ham-handed the government has been in handling these fake, propped up agitations. And on the other side, the agitationists are obviously using what you described. They seem to have access to AI models of mind manipulation.
Yes, so I will tell you one thing. Suppose magically, suppose magically, the owners and top people in Twitter and Facebook and so on were to say that, look, we are going to support the Hindu cause. And anytime we see all this whispering and all this chatter, all this conspiracy coming together and mobilization coming together, some meetings are going to happen, some rallies are going to happen. We have the brains, we have the intelligence and the surveillance to anticipate what's going to happen. We are actually going to shut it down. We are actually going to advise the Indian police or Indian authorities. If they wanted to, they could do that. And of course, this is part of the negotiation. India always looking for surveillance data, and then in exchange, India gives them the right to operate. When India says we will shut you down unless you do this, that, they will say, okay, we won't interfere with Modi. We won't give us 50 or 100 or 200 handles, and those will be given a total freedom. We will not interfere with them, but in exchange, we want some freedom from our side to operate in your country. Now, they are very smart people. They are like the East India Company. I'll tell you what has happened is China has pretty much colonized Pakistan already. China has
Hmm.
got a few lakh surveillance cameras, CCTV cameras connected with facial recognition and image recognition. All this big data going into is Chinese property, Chinese servers, and so they are keeping track of what this general is doing. Is he having an affair? Is he meeting with this guy? What is this terrorist doing? Who is he meeting? Where is he go? So all this surveillance that previously the intelligence bureau would do or RAW would do for India, and similarly the ISI would do for Pakistan, is all being done through artificial intelligence because this technology is so much more powerful. And the people who own it are the Chinese in the case of Pakistan, and the people who own it in the case of India are the American private companies. China has also pretty much colonized Africa. They have a deal with some countries in Africa, I've seen those contracts, the agreements, where the pretext is that we are giving you surveillance for national security. We'll protect you. You are the king or you are the dictator, and we'll protect you. And we'll tell you, we'll keep track of who's gossiping and who's doing what, and keep you protected. But in the process, they're also able to blackmail their own client. So it's like the East India Company protecting Raja A and making sure that Raja B and C don't harm him. But in the process of protecting Raja B, their spies are also giving them information on how to compromise Raja A. So while he's a client today, tomorrow if he turns against you and you need to blackmail him, you have all the data. So the ability of foreign surveillance and foreign big data companies and AI companies to blackmail India is huge, and to blackmail Pakistan is huge. So we are heading towards recolonization.
Yeah, given the way decisions are taken, made and unmade in India, it doesn't look like we are a free country. So this is going to make India so much more vulnerable. Rajiv, this has not only been very stimulating, as you always are, but also terribly worrying and spine chilling. We'll take a short break and then do part two in a day or two.
Thank you.